Hello, boys and girls. Happy Wednesday. Today, Finn is our superstar, and I'm hoping that you are going to watch the fifth grade graduation. It's on today at 10 o'clock. Ms. Hetzler sent an invite to your parents last night. If we were in school, we would all be there celebrating those fifth graders and the amazing job that they've done at Cassingham. So please join them at 10 o'clock on the Zoom call. I'm going to get right into our story. We're at chapter 6. We have 2 more chapters to go. Today, Gooniebird said on Wednesday, I am going to tell you about Catman and the cow. Maybe you've noticed that I'm wearing my cat and cow outfit today. The students nodded their heads. They had noticed. Gooniebird was wearing an orange fur jacket. Over her shoulder was slung a purse made from brown and white cowhide. Sometimes storytellers have special outfits that they wear. I think that's fine as long as it doesn't interfere with the story, Gooniebird continued. You may buy fake cat whiskers and ears, for example, but I would never wear such a distracting costume. Would you wear a tail? Beanie asked. I know somebody who had a cat tail and ears at Halloween. Put on your thinking caps, class, Gooniebird said. Think back to when I talked about Catman last week. No tail, the entire class said, all except Felicia Ann, although she looked up from the floor. That's right, Catman has no tail. I would tell about the lawnmower accident, and it would be an absolutely true story, but I never use violence in my stories. Oh, good, Kiko said. Violence makes me cry. Gooniebird smoothed her fur jacket and did her breathing exercises. Deep breath, let it out. Deep breath, let it out. I know a lot of you have been worried about Catman, she began. I certainly have, Mrs. Pigeon said. I've been thinking about Catman ever since he flew out of that flying carpet. By the way, Mrs. Pigeon, Gooniebird said, I do want to mention how lovely you look today. Mrs. Pigeon blushed a little. She was still wearing her high-heeled shoes with the buckles, and today she was also wearing a rhinestone butterfly perched in her hair. In fact, the whole class looks quite lovely, Gooniebird pointed out. She looked around. Malcolm, would you stand up? Malcolm rose from his seat and held his shoulders back. He was still wearing his polka dot tie, and today he had added a plaid belt. Kiko, Gooniebird said. Kiko giggled and stood. She had a bright green bow in her hair and a long, shiny silk scarf wrapped around her neck. Me? Asked Chelsea. Can I stand up? She did, and the class could see that she was wearing a fringed cowboy vest under her best dress. Me! Everyone, all but Felicia Ann, was calling out now, but Gooniebird said, later, after the story, I'm ready to begin now. She took one more deep breath. Let it out, she began. Beloved Catman is consumed by a cow. Once upon a time, not long ago, after they had left China, Gooniebird and Catman found themselves flying through the air on a carpet. The carpet landed in a meadow near a large brown and white cow who was contentedly eating wildflowers. The flowers were purple loosestrife. The carpet unrolled, and Gooniebird stood up and looked around. She could see in the distance her father's car quickly disappearing down the road. Beside her, Catman stood up. He had become very furry and fat, the way cats do when they're frightened. The cow, who had some purple blossoms dangling from her mouth, looked very surprised when a person and a cat and a carpet all landed in her meadow. She thought about what to do and decided that moving to a different corner of the meadow would be the best choice. Carefully moving slowly in a cow-like fashion, she strolled away toward the corner where yellow cosmos and oxeye daisies were in bloom. Gooniebirds' attention was on the car, which had now disappeared around the bend in the road. She was a little worried about the disappearance of the car, but Catman didn't care about the car. Catman never liked the car at all. In fact, Catman had hated the car, and he was glad it had disappeared. But he was also very interested in the cow. Catman had never seen a cow before. Now he watched with fascination as the cow moved slowly toward the other corner of the meadow. He liked the way the cow walked, heavily and with determination. He liked the way the cow smelled of thick, sun-warmed cowhide and meadow flowers. And as he scampered along behind the cow noticed and mooed. Catman liked the way the cow sounded. It was comforting, the low, throaty sound of a moo, and in the background was the buzzing of flies. Catman began to purr. In the distance, he could hear Gooniebird calling, Catman, Catman, but he didn't care. He found himself falling in love with a cow. In the evening, the farmer, Mr. Henry Scheffenheisen, came to the meadow and called the cow. It was time to take her into the barn to be milked. The cow liked the farmer, who was soft-spoken and kind, and she liked the barn, which was airy and dark and smelled of hay, and she liked being milked. which felt like sneezing, something that needed to be done now and then. So she cheerfully followed the farmer when he called her. Catman cheerfully followed the cow. The farmer's wife was feeding the chickens when her husband walked past, leading the cow. My word, she said. Look, there's a cat with no tail following that cow. So there is, said her husband. Perhaps he's hungry. We should feed him. They tried to take Catman into the house to be fed, but he refused to leave the cow. So they brought him a bowl of tuna fish and gave it to him in the barn. When the farmer milked the cow, he squirted some milk into the dish for Catman. That night, Catman, who was now completely and hopelessly in love, curled up beside the cow and slept. He had slept there ever since. During the day, he goes to the meadow with the cow, while the cow eats wildflowers. Catman chases field mice and butterflies, listens to the buzzing of the flies, and smells the warm, pleasant odor of the cowhide. That night, the farmer and his wife turned on the TV and saw the interview with the little girl who rode a flying carpet. If anybody finds my cat, the little girl said, please call the TV station. So the farmer called. I have that cat here in my barn, he said. Orange and white cat, no tail. But I got to tell you, he said, I don't think you'll be able to take him away. It won't leave my cow. Won't leave your cow, the TV lady said. She sounded puzzled. Nope, said the farmer. Wouldn't even leave for tuna fish. We had to take the tuna fish and put it right there beside the cow. Why? Happens sometimes, the farmer explained. I guess you'd call it something like love. That cat is downright in love with the cow. And the cow is in love with the cat? The TV lady asked. Nope, the cow doesn't care one way or another, but she doesn't step on the cat. She's a careful cow. The TV people called Goonie Bird and her parents. They told them where Catman was, and that Catman was consumed by a cow. So the Green family drove their car back to the meadow and visited Catman. Catman was nice to them, but they could tell that he was not consumed by the Green family. He was consumed only by the cow. So they kissed him goodbye. Then they hugged and kissed the farmer and his wife, and they all sang Farmer in the Dell and danced in a circle on their tiptoes. They all lived happily ever after. The end. I love happy endings, Kiko said. Me too, Mrs. Pigeon said. Thank you, Goonie Bird. Let's get out our arithmetic books now. Everyone in the class groaned. Oh, I know, Mrs. Pigeon said, laughing. It's much more fun to listen to Goonie Bird's stories. But we can look forward to tomorrow. She'll have another one tomorrow. Goonie Bird had gone back to her desk and taken out her arithmetic book. She looked up in surprise. No, actually, I won't. That was my last story. The second graders, almost every one of them, called, no, in a very loud and sad voice. It sounded like a huge chorus singing a song called No. Mrs. Pigeon looked horrified. But Goonie Bird, she said, we still have a lot of unanswered questions. Like what? Said Goonie Bird. Well, let me think, Mrs. Pigeon frowned. The false teeth, Nicholas called. Yes, Mrs. Pigeon said. Why did your father have to pack 43 sets of false teeth? That's a story you haven't told yet. Goonie Bird looked surprised. That's not a story, she said. That simply requires a dictionary. You have one right there on your desk, Mrs. Pigeon. Mrs. Pigeon reached for her dictionary. Look up this word, Goonie Bird said. She pronounced the word very carefully. Prosthodontist. My goodness, Mrs. Pigeon read the definition. It's a special kind of dentist. He makes false teeth. Exactly, Mrs. Goonie Bird said. That's what my father is. No story there. But we want more stories, Goonie Bird, Barry Tuckerman said in a loud voice. As usual, he was standing up with one knee on his desk chair. Goonie Bird sighed impatiently. I need to do my math, she said. I'm not very good at subtraction yet. But all right, sit down, Barry. Close your dictionary, Mrs. Pigeon. I will tell you how to get stories. And that's the end of the chapter. The last chapter we read tomorrow is chapter 7. Oh, and I forgot to show you a picture along the way. There's the cow with Catman. Chapter 7. Let me see. I'm looking for the big, bold words. Oh, there's no stories. She's not telling a story yet. She's just going to tell how she gets her stories. So she's going to describe the way that she comes up with ideas to tell stories, which sometimes is the hardest part, right? Sam Fletcher coming up with an idea that you can actually put on paper to read or to share with your friends in the audience that you're writing to. No. So let's see what she says tomorrow. Awesome, boys and girls. Have a wonderful Wednesday. 3 more days of first grade. You can do this. Oh, and thank you to those of you that wrote to healthcare workers. I saw a card from Griffin. So great job, Griffin. Keep those pictures coming. Have a wonderful day.